Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome to Underground Cinema. As you know, we're coming up very close to the Underground Cinema Awards, which will be held in the Royal Marine Hotel on November 16th. And what we're trying to do at the moment is to interview as many filmmakers, directors, actors, cast and crew before we reach the award ceremony in November. I'm delighted to say now I've got a great friend with me here today because we go back a long time. Is director Jason Figgis and Underground Cinema Award winner Steven Jess is with us today. You're very welcome, guys.
Thank you very much, Dave. Yes, I remember the early days when you'd pin a sheet on the wall and project a film on it.
Yeah, we go back so long. It's changed an awful lot since then, but yeah, we were. My background was theatre. Back then, what we wanted to do was we didn't even know if Underground Cinema was going to take off. To be honest with you, back in those days, there seemed to be. I was directing a stage show at the time. I think it was Judgment at Nuremberg. A guy came in late to rehearsal, told me about a fantastic short film he was in. I asked a few questions: when are we going to get to see it? We may never get to see it, I was told, if it doesn't get into a particular festival. And hence we decided, right, we'll start off Underground Cinema to start showcasing a lot of these independent Irish, it was mainly all Irish films at the start and international films. But you sent into us a great film. It was originally called Three Crosses back in the day, and then the title was changed to Once Upon a Time in Dublin with the fantastic.
Not by me.
Yeah,
by the distributor in the US. I was kind of going, oh, for frig's sake. What can you do? You either get the film out there or you don't. And they were like going, well, it sounds like a religious movie. And I thought, well, it's definitely not a religious movie. And they said, no, let's do this. I guarantee we get it out there. And they did get it out there, but I still kind of cringe when I think of it being called Once Upon a Time in Dublin. What can you do? It was 3 days.
Exactly, Jason. I mean, and you're not the first, and you won't be the last. There'll always be title changes. But what impressed me, it was the very first time we screened a feature film. Everything had been shorts at the time, so it was our first time. And also, you had a fantastic cast back then: Emmett Scanlon, Brian Fortune. I mean, you Bill Fellows, who's gone on to Coronation Street now at the moment. Charles Dance. It was a really super cast.
It was funny because Bill Fellows at the time when he was going into Coronation Street, he rang me up and he said, Jay, what do you think about me going into Coronation Street? And I said, well, you're quite a private guy, Bill. I said, if you go in, you realize that you're a household name now and that everywhere you go, people are going to stop you for selfies. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And of course, he had a great time, and left when he decided he wanted to leave. So it was kind of the perfect situation for Bill, and we're actually collaborating on a couple of things coming up in the next couple of years as well, so that's exciting.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, and also, so from there on, then we developed a really good relationship with you, Jason, over the years. We screened a lot of features and a lot of the shorts over the years, and then you were a little bit quiet for a while. For the past couple of years, I hadn't heard from you, and then I get this email in, and you said, "Would you like to take a look at this one?" And it's your new feature, "The House at the End of the Lane." And it was a fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. And again, you managed to secure some great actors. So you've got Patrick Bergin. You've also got Steven. Steven's won Best Actor award last year at Underground Cinema for his fantastic work in Communion. And then you got Sharon as well. So and a really, really good cast. Can you maybe tell everyone, just maybe give us a little idea what that film is all about, a synopsis, so to speak?
Okay, well, I mean, very quickly, really to say how it came about is more important even than the synopsis, is that I had I'd shot a showreel piece for Patrick. We'd become friends, and he said, hey, do you mind shooting this thing? And I shot it. And it was basically some big Netflix show, and he just wanted to do something really nice. So I put together something insanely elaborate, and he got back to me. He said, "Bloody hell!" He said, "That's like the finished product. What the hell is that about?" So then he said, "I'd love to see something else of your work." So I sent him a film that I made with the BIFA winner Lara Belmont from Tim Roth's The War Zone, called The Ghosts of Winifred Meeks, which we shot in Suffolk with Film Suffolk. And he saw that and loved it, and he thought we should make a film together. So he and his partner Helen came to me one day and said, "We've got an idea about a psychiatrist who's involved in a very dark world of kind of underground sex clubs and stuff like that. Could you write a film?" And I went, "All right." And 5 or 6 days later, I'd written the entire screenplay. And they were like, "Oh, thanks very much for letting us be in the process." And I said, "No, this is the script." And they went, "What? Oh my God." So they came back with a couple of notes. We changed a few things and off we went. But essentially, that's the genesis of it. But it is a film about a psychiatrist who has retired, is writing his memoirs, and he's sucked back into this world of kind of underground sex clubs and stuff that he was trying to leave out of his life. He kind of self-rehabilitated, but then the character played by Steven Jess there brings him back into that world in a very nefarious kind of nasty way.
Yeah, I mean, for Patrick Bergin, I mean, he's such a diverse actor. It's quite a dark and complex role. Really, haven't really seen him in a role like that before.
That's what he saw as a kind of a challenge. He thought, you know what, this is really dark. Like when they read the script, he rang me up, and Patrick, it was like silence, and then he goes, "You're a dark man, Figgis. You're a dark." And I said, "Well, you gave me an outline for a story here. It wasn't going to be Bambi. This was not going to be a Disney show. So, and the stuff I've done before, it tends to be quite dark." So he went, "Yeah, well, let's just do it." And we launched on the campaign of getting the film made.
Yeah, the film takes place in various different locations. Actually, the locations actually add to the film itself. Some of the locations are quite dark, and your lighting in some of the scenes is quite dark, and it just gives that dark element to the film. That was deliberate, Jason. I would imagine, yeah.
Oh, very much so deliberate, because I kind of thought if we can reflect the state of the characters' minds and their surrounding and the kind of world that they want to live in and the lighting that they use in their own respective spaces, almost as if they're even being secretive in their own private life, as well as, as they may be seen publicly as well.
Yeah, it's quite a layered piece, Stephen. Yeah, there's a lot of depth in these characters. Now you're on the phone for most of it throughout the entirety of the film. But you pulled it off really well. Did you enjoy the script?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dave. Yeah, I did enjoy it, and the phone call scenes really hard. That they're harder to do, they really are, because you're nearly acting alone and acting off impulses in terms of what you might hear or what you might think is coming across. But I did enjoy it. And back to your comment about layered characters. I think that's what I enjoy about Jason's writing, to be honest with you. He writes characters very, very well, very layered. In terms of Colin, I mean, so much to play with as an actor there. Really, you really do. He'll throw in certain lines like, the throwaway lines nearly, as in the character will say, "This happened to him," or "He killed someone," or "He got abused." I won't go into detail, but we'll just leave that there. And as an actor, to know that that's the line, and I have to create everything else around that, how it happened, where it happened, when it happened, in detail myself. That's what I love doing. And there's so much space to do that in the layered, complex characters, like you said. So really enjoyed it, yeah.
What sort of approach do you take on something like this, Jason? Do you do you rehearse it? Do you workshop it at all, or is it just strictly stick to the script?
Well, what I love to do is, to me, collaboration is everything. But part of the collaboration is making sure you have the right people to play the roles, and then letting them get on with it. So Steven, I knew, could perfectly inhabit this dark character, because, oddly enough, because he's the complete opposite, really, in real life. I mean, Steven and I have our very regular meetups, and we talk about everything you could imagine. But I also knew, with his skill as an actor, that if I gave him even a kernel of an idea about something, that he'd be able to take it and develop it and make it his own. So to me, that's really important. The language on the page is very important, but I'm never so, I don't keep it that close to me that I would say to an actor that you can't put it into your own words to make it work. I always think that's very important, that if you bring on somebody amazing and they're the ambassadors for the written word, then allow them take that and do it. I mean, Patrick Bergin being a classic example, I'd written, these stories that he was going to tell, and we sat down together and he said, what if I said this, or I removed that, and then what if I added that, or I gave this look? And I thought, it's Patrick Bergin. I mean, he's the guy who, from Sleeping with the Enemy, who got them to remove the entire monologue at the end of the film and replace it with, I can't live without you, and I won't let you live without me. And then Julia Roberts kills him. I mean, that was down to Patrick. The writer, even when he went up and he said, I think at this point I wouldn't have that energy. This is what I would say. And the director told the writer, and the writer looked at Patrick and put a line through the script and walked away. And they said, well, you've got your thing. And it's become one of those legendary Hollywood lines. So if Patrick comes up with an idea, you tend to listen to it. You tend to go, you know what? His instinct is spot on, because Patrick goes so deep into the character anyway,
Yeah, like his approach is fantastic, because like he's playing a psychiatrist that's unraveling with his own, dark desires. And did you do any sort of research on the role? Anything specific, psychiatry, mental health?
Oh, absolutely. I looked at a lot of interviews, and I read quite a few articles about that there was quite a high incidence of psychiatrists and doctors who would self-medicate or commit suicide because of the darkness of the realm that they're in, day in, day out. And some have, obviously I can't name any names, some have actually really gone down a dark path that has led to a kind of a destruction, or self-destruction. So I looked into all that, not too deeply, because it got a bit dark and a bit disturbing. And I think you only need to go so far to understand things. And then I just put it over to Patrick and his idea, and then over to Steven as well for Colin. I mean, if you think about it in a way, Steven's character is a lot darker than Patrick's. But he's also I always think of Steven's character as the puppet master in the story, because he's manipulating everyone around him, even the woman at the end, at the estate agent. You can tell that he's enjoying the fact that he's making her feel small. That he's a classic narcissist, but a very dangerous human being as well, because this character has committed murder. I know I'm giving away a spoiler there, but it's early on in the film anyway. But he's a murderer and a controlling narcissist.
Yeah, you've also got the wonderful Sharon McCoy in the film as well. She did a brilliant job as well. I know her sister very well. She comes from, I've acted with her sister as well, so she comes from a brilliant acting background. And what was it about Sharon that you wanted her in the film?
Well, again, I mean, funnily enough, Patrick introduced me to Sharon, and he said, you got to meet Sharon McCoy, fabulous actress. I think she'd be brilliant to play this role. So he actually ended up casting her. I met her and realized she was perfect for it. And so again, it was one of those serendipitous things where you're introduced to somebody and you realize, wait a minute, I don't even have to look any further. This is the person that I need to play this role. And we, again, develop the character with Sharon. She goes very deep. She knows her lines from the get-go. So as soon as you get on set, she's completely off book, the same as Steven and all the other actors, that they can immediately then jump into the role. And that's where the fun begins, as you know. I know Michael Caine said in an interview that he always makes sure that no matter how big or small his role is, when he arrives on set, he knows his lines inside out. So then the fun can begin. So that was the case with this. We'd be on location, and then I could discuss with Sharon, so what do you think here? Or where would you like to sit? Do you want to sit in the window for this scene? How would you like it to be when you're laying your clothes out on the bed? And we discussed all of that because, I'm not an autocrat when it comes to making films. I as I said earlier, I believe that it's a collaboration. I was talking to somebody recently because I directed an action film in Spain in late spring, and they were saying, "God, you did such a great job with the film," and I said, "No, we did." I said, "If it wasn't for you guys, I would have been setting up my cameras in a lot of empty rooms and filming nothing." And they were like, "Oh yeah, good point." So collaboration is everything. Patrick collaborated by going, "You got to meet Sharon." I met Sharon. She was perfect, and then we collaborated. So again, it's not like the standard way of going out and doing a casting call. You know, I'd seen her in Vikings Valhalla, even in the early parts where she was just in the background. She stood out, and that's why they brought her forward. And they went, you know what? This Sharon's really got something here. Let's bring her to the fore. And you know, and the power of her as an actress speaks for itself.
You're dead right. I was talking to a young filmmaker just before we went online there, Thomas Wallace, who he's a young filmmaker starting off in IADT, and funny we were talking about the exact same thing. Surround yourself with really good people, and the job is going to be, look, absolutely amazing. It's going to be so easy, and that's what you did in this case. It's a small team as well, Jason, isn't it? That you're working on this.
Look, to be honest, I mean, you could say that, but then I have to draw the comparison with the action movie I did in Spain, because I was working with like guys from Guy Ritchie's stunt team, and they were actually coming to me and going, "All right, boss, what do you want us to do?" And I said, "You tell me." And they were like, "What?" And I said, "Go on, you show me a really good bare knuckle fight scene." And they were thrilled. They were like, "We can design it." I said, "Yeah." I said, "You design it. If it looks great, I will film it, and that'll be it." So at the end of the shoot, they were like, "Anything you need us for, let us know when you're making another movie, and we'll be there." Because again, it's collaboration. And if you bring amazing people on board, get the hell out of their way and let them do what they do. I can't design fight scenes. So if you got Guy Ritchie stunt guys, that's a no-brainer. Like we had Ron Perlman's double, and he was doing the bare knuckle fights. He was designing everything. I'm like, Ron Perlman's double, do your thing. And he was amazing. The stuff was, you'll see it in the film later in the year. I'll send it to you. But it's like really, really amazing stuff. So again, it's like, yes, collaboration is key on every aspect of everything you do. But as you said, keeping the crew small. I've never been a fan of people standing around with clipboards doing nothing, because they're in the actor's space. The actor's aware there's a lot of people standing watching. When I'm filming, if I don't have a cinematographer, if I'm shooting myself, I clear the space, and it's literally just me, the sound operator, and the actors, and no one else. And that way, it also keeps the amount of takes very low, because you'll find that they'll nail it on the second take, and we'll do one for Lloyd's, as Patrick Bergen always said, "Let's do one for Lloyd." And I love that expression, and I've taken it on now, Patrick. I've stolen it from me. But it's true. It's like, give them their space to do what they do, and things move a hell of a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, they are the professionals. I mean, your job as a director is to say yes or no, it's right, it's wrong.
Absolutely.
Let them do your job, and you're quite good at multitasking as well, Jason. I mean, you're right. You direct, you're a cinematographer, you're an editor, you're a jack of all trades. Do you find that difficult, or do you find it just quite easy to do now?
No, because I'll tell you what, that started in the early days, around the time of Three Crosses, and Three Crosses was, I mean, it was what it was. It was the first feature film I ever made. I had 135 hours of footage. Ridiculously, because we shot insanely. Drove Emmett Scanlon up the wall. "Hey, Emmett, I thought of another bare knuckle fight we could do." And he's like, "Oh, Jesus. All right, I'll get back in shape." He was always in shape, but or he'd have to reshape his beard, or whatever, because he's always bearded now and everything he does, and he's got a great career going. But that was crazy. That was 135 hours. But it was like learning how to do everything right, and never do the bad stuff again, and improve on the good stuff. So to me, that was like my college. But what I realized was that if I wanted to make a lot of stuff, I was going to have to learn how to do all of it myself. So I trained as an editor, as a cinematographer, as a sound designer, as a sound mixer, writing and trying to stick to the scripts that I've written. Because if you find that you do have a voice as a writer and it's working, then go with your instinct. And then, as I said, allow the actors to adjust as we need to go. But at the same time, know every aspect of making a film, and then at least if you do have an editor, say you bring an editor on board, you can sit in with the editor and you know if he's making good or bad decisions. You can collaborate again on that. Same with cinematography. I've worked a lot with Alan Rogers, who's great and such a lovely guy. I always say about Alan Rogers is that he doesn't see anything as a problem. It's always like there's a solution there. And he's always laughing. He's always in good form no matter what is happening. So if I ever work with anyone other than myself as a cinematographer, it's Alan Rogers, because you're going to have a great time. And I'm sure you've had a lot of films in that Alan has shot. Yeah. He's a very prolific cinematographer and filmmaker. But just knowing every aspect of it makes it a simpler thing. Even if you're not doing them, if you understand them, it makes the whole process easier.
How disciplined are you then in the edit? Because it can be very difficult, when you're the director and the writer, to detach yourself away. And because when you're an editor, you got to be ruthless in some cases, absolutely ruthless. Did you find that challenging when you're involved in the edit process yourself, or do you get another eye in, maybe?
I'll tell you why, Dave, I don't find it a problem, is because I am my own worst critic. So if I see anything that isn't working, I will just throw it out. And I said, well, if we get a Blu-ray or DVD, it can go on as a deleted scene. I'm brutal when it comes to the narrative flow of something. So when I was editing The House at the End of the Lane, every time I went in to look at it, I was tightening it, chopping it, tightening it constantly to get it more smooth, to have less air between stuff they were saying, and to keep it zipping along. Because it is very much, The House at the End of the Lane, like a lot of stuff I write, could be a radio play, it could be a play, or it could be a film. And as I always say to people, what's the difference of it being a film? Well, you're employing the grammar of cinema, masters, mids, close-ups, sound effects, cutaways. So to me, it was like, try and tell the story as best you can, but be really brutal in the edit and make sure that it's as lean and mean as possible. Like, I don't believe any independent feature film should be longer than 90 minutes. I just think, never outstay your welcome if you can. I've even done films that were like 80 minutes and then 85 with opening and closing credits. I did that with the Ghost Story I did with Lara Belmont in Suffolk, because I just wanted to keep it as lean as possible. I mean, even with that film, our film was loved and hated for exactly the same reason. When we did Winifred Meeks, people would come along and they would go, oh, it's like one of those BBC ghost stories through Christmas in the 70s. I hate it. Oh, it's like one of those BBC ghost stories through Christmas from the 70s. I love it. And it was literally, they were divided on the same point. And I love that, because I realized, well, then I succeeded, because that's exactly what I wanted to make. So I succeeded. Those who were going to love it were going to love it, and those who were going to hate it were going to hate it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Your locations in the film as well. Was this film all shot in Ireland, or was it abroad as well?
Abroad as well. Now, that's the funny thing, because, of course, we had an American character in a play by Peter Pamela Rose. Now, she's amazing. She voiced the ghosts in M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. She played Willow in Sex and the City. And I basically have set up a partnership with her where we're producing a lot of stuff. And she came over and did workshops. She flew over, did workshops with Steven and Paul Sparks. And it was an amazing experience. But I said to her, look, I really want you to play Caroline. So she ended up getting one of her own cinematographers, this amazing Texan Mexican guy called Adrian Lopez. 6-foot Mexican, really nice guy, very talented, very collaborative. And he basically shot the stuff in New York and LA for me. So it's like, hey, this isn't stock footage. We're actually shooting in New York, Los Angeles, and Dublin. Oh, and Tipperary. So there you go.
Yeah, your real sort of international showcase there. All the locations look really, really good. Stephen, I was just wondering, because you do quite a lot of telephone calls in the film. Was there a stick-out scene that you enjoyed doing the most?
Personally, myself,
in the bathroom, perhaps.
Watching it back, I really love the telephone scene with Peter Pamela Rose. I'm just listening to an audio or a voicemail, But the fact I say nothing for about a minute or 2 minutes, and I think I can see different range of emotions there from just listening to her voice. You know, like I said, Colin's the puppet master. He's pulling strings. He wants closure. He wants revenge. He wants to suck people in, and he loves Alan, Paul Sparks' character. He loves him.
Yeah.
Friends, they've been friends forever, and he's gone, and it's like it feels like he's been taken away. And in that scene, I think I was really impressed. And I'm very, very critical of myself, so it's hard to even talk nice about myself. But that scene I enjoyed because I said nothing and I did it all in the face. I just thought there was a few different emotions portrayed there, and at the end as well, a subtle hint of sadness. It kind of he is a monster or a psychotic narcissist, as Jason says, but there's a side to him there for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. You see a softer side. Enjoyed that.
Yeah. Scene. Yeah, I think you definitely pulled it off as the puppet master, because that was the first thought that came into my head. As I watched the film progress. So I think you did an excellent job. So you've also got you have Helen Golan's producing the film as well, Jason, which is great. I know she's Patrick's long-term partner as well. What's the plans at the moment for the film? Is it touring on a festival circuit now at the moment, or what's up your sleeve?
Well, fully enough, we've already had a couple of offers to distribute for it in the US. So literally straight out of the gate. And Peter Pamela Rhodes is the main producer. He's the one literally going to the farms, kind of making things happen. And immediately got interest from distributors in the US. So I went where she kind of going, oh, those were waiting some more meetings, some distributors. She's working on getting us the best possible deal and exposure for the film. So exciting that we know we have 2 offers already. That's a great position to be in. So we just wait and see who are the ones who end up distributing it.
Yeah. What do you reckon? How important is it to have a name like Patrick Bergin? I mean, if you take, in my experience, when it comes to feature films, if you say go to the Galway Fleadh, for example, to the marketplace there, and you pitch, it's a bit like speed dating on, down there. You got about 10 minutes to pitch to somebody there. Oh, he's gone. Oh, he'll come back. But I'm just wondering, from my experience, it seems to be really important for some distributors. It's almost like the first question they ask is I think Jason's back with us now.
I disappeared. My connection went.
Yeah, no problem, Jason. I think, in short, the question I'm asking is, when it comes to distribution, certainly in my experience, is that, a lead, a name is really, really important to get it across the line. If you don't have a name there, you're going to really, really struggle. So, if you didn't have Patrick in this film, I think it could be a difficult one to sell.
I agree with you, Dave. The thing is, right, with horror, you don't need a name at all, as we know. If you have a good concept, you can sell a horror anywhere if it's a decent story, and a lot of blood and guts, or just atmosphere if it's a ghost story, because we immediately got distributed. I mean, Lara Belmont, she certainly there was interest in her, so having her as a bit of a winner, and most promising new actress of the year, and that all the work that she had done, that really helped us get that film seen as well, even though it is a paranormal film. But Patrick, obviously, having Patrick's name as the star in this film, immediately had people showing interest, going, oh, great, because Patrick has been doing a lot of, he enjoys doing a lot of, cameo roles where you can go in for a few days, make a real impression, and then go away and do something else. So he'd have a lot of variety in his career where he just gets to do a lot of different things. So to have him as the above the title, essentially, actor on this really, really helped it. Because as you say, it's a very dark story, a very dark tale. And it's by nature, it's very niche because of that. But then if you have a name like Patrick, then people go, oh, but it's Patrick Bergin, Hollywood legend, starring in this film. So let's at least have a look at it. And when people have looked at it, they've gone, well, it looks beautiful, it sounds beautiful. Yes, it's dark, but it's artistic, it's cinematic. So they start looking at all the different aspects of it that make the whole. And so because of that, we've had really good reaction. It's probably not the kind of story that I would revisit, I have to say, because I'm kind of, after making that film, I kind of said to different producers, I said, everything I do now, there has to be hope at the end. Even if they go through the mill, there's got to be hope at the end. The world we're living in at the moment. It'd be nice to have a bit of hope. I watched a film recently with Frank Grillo, and it's like this really brutal, nihilistic, amoral film about a guy's daughter is kidnapped, and he'll do anything to get her back. He kills everyone. He kills women. He kills cops. He cuts his own best friend's head off with a chainsaw, and he walks away at the end. And I applauded him, and I went, "Yes, you did what was right for your daughter. I'm a dad of a daughter, and I get it, mate." So to me, that was hopeful, even though it was an amoral film, It's called Little Dixie. Little Dixie, if anyone hasn't seen it, give it a watch.
And the other thing I was thinking about while I was watching the film, Jason, was, and I'm sure you'll agree with me as well, isn't it fantastic when you get the likes of actors of Patrick's caliber given something back? I think it's fantastic. If you look at say, if you take Aidan Gillen, for example, who's enormously successful at the moment, he's always popping up in shorts and features here and there with independent filmmakers. Brendan Gleeson would be the same. It's like they never forget where they came from, and they always make time to do just a little bit extra with independent filmmakers. I think that's incredible, and I think it's to be encouraged. And my hat goes up. I have to tip my hat to the likes of Patrick and Brendan and Aidan Gillen and lots more actors for doing that. They never forget where they came from.
I agree with you. And the thing is, but I think a lot of that is that they still have a passion for storytelling as well. And so they haven't got to that stage in Hollywood. They go, oh, I've reached the zenith. Now there's nothing else left to achieve. They actually remember the joy of just being in stuff and doing stuff. And so that'll be one of the reasons why the passion of being with people who want to tell stories for the sake of telling stories. And I think that's why they do that. They go, come on, let's make something. It's that whole idea of let's make something, let's get something done, And if they are in between big Hollywood movies, to keep your instrument sharp, then let's go out and make something. Here's one with sticky back that we prepared earlier.
And I think,
absolutely.
Even from an actor's point of view, or everyone who's involved in the film, to have someone like Patrick, his experience, his wealth of knowledge, to even be around that. Now, I didn't get to do scenes with him. Now it's the magic of film these days. But Paul Sparks got to do a scene with Patrick, and just to be around that and run lines with someone of his experience is just so beneficial for the actor as well. And that scene in particular, with Patrick and Paul, it's probably for me the standout scene for me. I just thought it was beautiful, really was delivered so well, and Paul was so comfortable again, sitting next to an absolute legend of a man. And I think that it goes down to the prep, and not letting any of that get to you, but the professionalism, even of Paul, to just sit there and be in the moment and take it all in. And even back here, like for that scene, for me in particular, again, you mentioned the lighting earlier on, and how that was lit. I love how that was lit in particular, because it's like Paul's character, one side of his face is bright, the other side is dark, and Shawnee has something to hide, or dark side. Then you cut to Patrick's character, and it's the exact same thing, light and dark, and on the exact same side of the face, which again to me says they have a dark side about them, and it's probably something in common. I just thought it was delivered so well. Probably my favorite scene of the film. Fantastic job.
Well, Paul Sparks just so cool anyway. He just arrived, he sashayed in there, and he was like, yeah, doing the scene with Patrick, fantastic. so prepared. But a funny thing, Stephen, about what you mentioned there about lighting, I actually I wanted both of them to be lit from the same side, as you say. But obviously, if you think about the shot, and this will give something away to people if they're watching it, that they were actually both look at this. They were both sitting at the same window, but I had to flip Patrick's image to make it look as though he was sitting opposite Paul. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked. So if you think about it geographically in the room, it shouldn't work, and it actually doesn't work. But because the eye line works, it works. So that was actually quite funny, manipulating the image in that way. But also, as I told them, like Patrick is going, "Where are the lights?" And I said, "No, you're sitting in the window. Your light is the light coming in the window." And he was like, "Oh, that's beautiful." And I showed him the shot, flipped the monitor, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's really beautiful." And I said, "We don't need lights. The entire film was shot with no extra lighting. It was all available lights from windows, or it was lamps, stuff like that. And that gives it a very nice feel. And when you're shooting with Panasonic cameras, which have a very, very good low light capability, it means that you can do that. You can get in there and really film with available light and not have to worry about extra stuff.
Do you find this encouraging, Jason? When we as I said earlier on, we go back a long time, 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, it would be next to impossible to see an independent, low-budget Irish film in the cinema.
Yeah.
Over the past couple of years now, we're seeing an Omniplex and IMC. We're now seeing a lot of independent Irish feature films popping up in mainstream cinemas. And not only that, they're getting long runs. So if you take the Hurler, for example, that's a 6-week run. Broken Law, I think, was a 6-week run with Paddy Slattery. At the moment, Swing About, Sinead O'Riordan's film, is on its 4th week. I've no doubt it'll get a 6-week run. Any Irish independent film that's getting a 6-week run in the mainstream cinema, there's definitely an audience there for independent Irish cinema, rather than your Marvels and your big Hollywood blockbusters. There's definitely a market for it. Would you agree?
I totally agree, but I see one of the main issues there is the fact that the technology has caught up with the storytellers. So it's now affordable to use cameras that are as good as anybody else's. If you're shooting 4K with cinema lenses, your film is going to look as good as David Fincher's. So there's no excuse now, really. You can now supply cinemas with something that looks as good as anybody else's. And that's really, really important, I think. I mean, when we made Three Crosses, we shot it on mini DV. You know what I mean? Because we didn't have anything. So only HD was starting to appear at that time. We thought, well, we better keep going with mini DV, because networks were still broadcasting mini DV and analog. And now, of course, they wouldn't touch it. But back then they were. So it was like, well, this is what we have, and this is what we're gonna shoot. I mean, Danny Boyle shot 28 Days Later on mini DV, and so he was one of the great kind of knights out there, pushing forward the whole digital cinema idea. And he was one of the only few at the time, because all the others were like, no, we'll never let go of film. We'll never let go of celluloid. And now, of course, as we know, most of them have, and they've even stopped making film cameras at certain companies. But then you'll still have the likes of Spielberg and Cameron and Christopher Nolan, who said they'll never shoot on anything other than film. But then again, they're making $200 million movies. They can afford to say that, because the studio will go, yes, of course you can shoot on Kodak or whatever the hell, or have your 70 millimeter film or your 100 millimeter film, whatever the hell. So, but most people can't do that. But now we can compete because of how amazing the technology has become.
Yeah, if you think back in the day, you'd have to hire an edit suite and film base in Dublin to get the job done. It's expensive. Absolutely. Now most people are doing post-production in the bedroom.
That's exactly it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Same with music. People recording, in their room an entire album, and it's like incredible. They're getting discovered and, having huge careers.
Well, look, guys, I really appreciate you coming along with me today to have a chat about the film. Congratulations on nomination, Jason.
Thank you very much.
It's great. We've only recently introduced Best Feature Award because, we've only started the features over the past, say, six or 7 years. So it's a relatively new award, but to get the nod, I think it's an important category now that we include it in every year now, because there are so many. Back 15 years ago, there was hardly any features. Now there's so many Irish independent features coming out. It's really important that we recognise it. So we really do appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing what you have in the future, guys.
Yeah, well, we're working with Steven on another film called Lavender Fields, and we'll have the Spanish movie out soon. You'll be a screener.
Fantastic. Well, you couldn't get a better actor than Steven there.
I know, he's amazing. You're right, Steven.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks a million, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thanks very much, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.